Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Brooke Mitchell, and today's topic is Wild Dogs of India, the Whistling Hunters, with Expedition Leader Yaju. I'm so sorry, Yaju Upadhyaya. I messed it up. I'm so sorry. Oh, thank you so much for being here today, Yaju. Over to you.
Thank you, Brooke, and welcome everyone. Today we are going to talk about a shy and seldom seen species and learn a few new things about the life of these wonderful predators. I'm dialing in from Kanha National Park, which is the heart of Indian wilderness and a place that I've been proud to call my home for a little more than a decade. Wild dogs are one of the most iconic species that you can sight in Kanha. But firstly, little about myself. Who am I? My name is Yaju Upadhyaya, and I've been with Natural Habitat for over a year now. Before that, I have been working as a naturalist and safari guide in Kanha and some of the other national parks here in central India. My journey into wildlife started straight out of college when I started interning with a wildlife tour operator, which got me very interested into bird watching and photographing big mammals. I chose to follow my passion and started working as a safari guide in central India. Working as a safari guide fueled my passion further, and during my free time, I started exploring the amazing biodiversity of India. My travels took me to the remotest corners of our country and gave me a chance to observe and spend time with rarely seen species. After working in India's tiger country for over a decade, I decided to expand my horizon and become an expedition leader, guiding and hosting guests to the various parts of our country. But today, our focus will be on this beautiful creature, the fascinating world of one of the most elusive predators of India, the dhole. Now, why are they called whistling hunters? Unlike other canids, dholes don't howl. Instead, they use a fascinating range of vocalizations, which include whistles, yaps, and clucks. It is these distinctive whistles that have earned them the unique name whistling dogs. Their unique communication helps them coordinate during hunts and maintain contact within their pack. Although Dholes are not certainly amongst the most captivating species, they are very fascinating. Once widespread across Asia and the Indian subcontinent, their numbers have declined due to various challenges. In this session, we will explore the life of these charismatic species and discuss ways to alleviate the pressures they face in the wild. Some of the topics that we are going to cover today: who are Dholes? For those of us who don't know much about them. Next up, we are going to talk about their distribution, both present and historic, their life history, so we can learn more about these beautiful animals, their hunting strategies. Hunting strategies of predators is something we all get excited about. And Dholes have a very unique way of hunting. I'll share some of my own experiences about their hunting strategies. Then we dive into the various threats faced by this species. And moving on, we'll talk about how these species will survive and flourish over the upcoming years. And as Brooke mentioned, finally, we'll have some time for a few questions. So starting with the evolution, the Dholes genus, which is known as Kuan, emerged during the last ice age, which ended around 11,500 years ago. During that time, these animals roamed across Asia, North America, and Europe. However, a mass extinction event, the one that wiped out iconic species like the mammoth that you see in this picture here and the saber-toothed cat, caused the decline of many members of this genus. Eventually, only one species remained, confined to Asia, the modern-day dhole we see today. The name dhole is thought to have come from the word thola, which is a regional Indian term for wolf. But if we look at its scientific name, Huon alpinus, it tells us even more. Huon is Greek for dog, and alpinus means mountainous. So Dhole's name literally translates to mountain dog. Yet, what's really captivating is that Dhole are known by 64 native names across 38 languages. This is incredible. The variety of name just reflects how far and wide they once roamed. And this is not even counting the countless other names that they've shared with wolves and jackals. This shows us how deeply they were intertwined with local wildlife and culture across their vast range. Have a look at this. For those of us who are not familiar with this map, this is the map of Asia, and we see two distinct colors on this map. The pink color shows the historic range of these wild dogs, and the green tells us about their current range. Historically, dholes once roamed a vast range from the cold expanse of Siberia far in the northeast to the tropical islands of Java and Indonesia right here at the bottom of your screen, and almost nearly all across the Indian subcontinent. However, over the past 200 years, their numbers have plummeted and they have been wiped out from most of their former habitats. Recent studies show that dholes are now absent from nearly 75% of their historic range. The primary drivers for this decline include a rapidly growing human population and increased land development, which have drastically reduced the space available for these predators. Additionally, the reliance on agriculture and cattle farming in many Asian communities has fueled human wildlife conflict. Today, the dholes inhabit forested habitats across only South and Southeast Asia. Their populations can currently be found in 11 different countries, with the largest groups in India. Unfortunately, their presence is highly fragmented with smaller populations scattered across Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. While we don't have precise numbers for the global population, estimates suggest that there are only 4,500 to 10,000 dholes left in the wild. And what is even more surprising is that just 300 of them, 3,000 of them are said to be mature adults capable of breeding. Just for our comparison, some of us who have been to Africa can you can see that we have the African wild dog, and their ranges are said to have overlapped at some point in history. And the African wild dog is marginally bigger than the dholes. Dholes are known to be extremely social animals and they live in packs of 2 to 25 members. But what will surprise you is historically, large packs of as many as 40 individuals have also been recorded. Imagine what a terror they would be. 40 of these predators lined up together and roaming through our forests. Here on the inset, you can see the map of India and the current dhole population. What makes the dhole truly special? First and foremost, they are social animals that hunt in packs, although it is more accurate to refer them as clans rather than packs. This distinction is important because while wolves hunt as a cohesive pack, dholes often hunt by splitting into smaller groups and sometimes we address them as clans. Interestingly, displays of dominance among adult dholes are rare. It's primarily the pups and subadults that engage in playful fighting. Some studies suggest us that in environment rich in food resources, a strict dominance hierarchy isn't necessary. Unlike many other canids, dholes may have more than one breeding female within a clan, allowing for greater flexibility in their social structure. To thrive, dholes require large territories, and within each clan, the entire group plays a vital role in supporting the alpha pair as well as the pups. Recent research, including radiotelemetry and genetic studies, has revealed an intriguing aspect of their social structure. We've just got to know that female dholes tend to disperse more frequently, while males often experience delayed dispersal. These individuals who leave their clans may then join forces with nomadic dholes, forming new and unrelated clans. This movement not only helps establish new and social groups, but also promotes genetic diversity within the species. Here in this picture, we can see three dholes of a pack that we often used to observe in very active in the area. Some of us will be going for safari if we are doing the Grand India Wildlife Adventure in this coming season. They were out for a hunt, so let us explore their hunting style and strategies that makes dhole one of the most successful predators in the Indian landscape. These cooperative hunters rely on teamwork and high endurance, allowing them to chase down prey effectively. Dholes are primarily diurnal hunters, which means most of their hunting occurs during the day or in the early morning. While night hunts are rare, they may occur on full moon nights. This tells us that they depend heavily on sight. A hunting pack of dholes can bring down prey 10 times its size. These hunting parties employ a variety of tactics that includes splitting into small scouting groups and sometimes even driving their prey into water. Dholes have a diverse prey base, and you can see a wide array of their prey in this screen. If we start from the top left, you have the swamp deer, or what in India is also called the barsinga. On the center of the top of your screen, we have Asia's largest deer, which is sambar, a distant relative of the Rocky Mountain elk that you have in the United States. On the top right, we have spotted deer or chitta, the most common species of deer that we have in India, and very similar looking to the white-tailed deer that you have in the United States. Research tells us that dholes prefer animals weighing between 60 and 350 pounds. While dholes are primarily active hunters, we have often seen them scavenging on kills, such as elephants in southern India and gaur, this big cattle-like creature that you see on the bottom right of your screen. Now, gaur are the heaviest cattle in the whole world. Sometimes males of these species will be close to 2,400 pounds. Also, many a times we have seen dholes ingesting grass, but this appears to be related to treating infection rather than for nutritional purposes. Their diets can also include a variety of animals, with beetles, rodents, and birds all recorded amongst their prey items. So, when we talk about their technique, I'm going to narrate a sighting that we had a few years back. It was a late afternoon, and we were on a game drive, and about six wild dogs were lazing on the edge of the meadow while there was a huge herd of spotted deer grazing on the center of the meadow. And all of a sudden, two of these dholes got up from the nap and started just running towards the deer. As you can see in this picture, what a sight it was, seeing both the dhole and cheetal in full speed and often in mid-air. Within seconds, we could see that they had singled out their target. Following a crisscross pattern, they had separated a doe and tired her down using her stamina. And interestingly, they were constantly whistling during the chase. They managed to chase the deer to the edge of the meadow, and while one dhole pinned the doe in place, another one seized the prey. And by that time, the other pack members started joining them. Some were biting the tail, some were biting the side flanks, and some were biting the ears. And to your amazement, almost immediately, they started pulling the flesh of the prey, even when she was alive. Wow. Just like we had seen in that sighting, we have observed that often the feeding begins even before the prey collapses on the ground. The wild dogs are known to feed on all major body parts like the liver, kidney, heart, and lungs. However, what we have usually seen is that the stomach and the rumen area are almost always left out. Well, that was one of my most incredible sightings, to see dholes out in the meadow at full speed. Moving on, we'll talk a little bit about their breeding behavior. During my time in Kanha National Park, there was a pack of dholes that were very active in the area that we used to go on safari. And we got to be very lucky and we spent a lot of time up close and personal with these dhole. So, talking about their breeding, in central India, we have often seen that the mating season occurs between October and November. This is the time when the rainy season has just ended in India. Many a times when the parks have just opened in the first week of October, we see new pairs like you see in this photo getting to bed together, and we see a lot of affection, lot of nudging of the noses together, lot of rubbing of their bodies together, and we see them together for close to 2 to 3 days indulging in mating, and then they disappear. What happens next? So, working as a safari guide, I was very fortunate to help out a team of researchers who wanted to radio collar dholes. Here you can see this gravid female close to a denning site, which she had scouted in advance. Now, this particular denning site, the dhole packs have been using for close to 15 years. And to your astonishment, this is almost outside the national park and very close to a village. They are living in our backyards and we rarely still see them. How amazing, isn't it? Once this female scouted her denning site, she disappeared for a month or so. As we knew where she was probably going to give her cubs, from a distance, we started observing this hillock. And at about 70 days, we saw these dhole pups leaving their den site for possibly the first time. This is from my first NatHab trip. We were on a walk, which is a part of your itinerary when you're on the Grand India Wildlife Adventure. And we were a group of 12 of us, and on an afternoon walk where our spotter or our local guide actually spotted two of these young pups looking at us from the hillock. It was, you can see how camouflaged they are, and it took almost half an hour for the whole group to sight them. On an average, one whole litter could consist of 3 to 4 pups. Here are 3 young pups close to a den, and you can see a kind of embankment behind them because they are on a paddy field very close to a village. This tells us how closely they live, you know. For them to live so confidently and raise their pups close to humans, phenomenal. Now, this is the first time we saw these dholes inside the national park. They were about 3 to 3.5 months old in this. The whole pack strength, excluding the cubs, was about 7 adults. And on that day, we saw them patrolling their territory. We didn't see them hunting or feeding, but just following the adults and getting to know the forest that they are going to rule in the future. Look at this young one. This one is about 6 months old, and by this time, they are ready to help in the hunt. So, this was a morning game drive that we were on, and I was working with the lodge, which was situated next to a river. and we were about 2 kilometers away from the lodge. And about 10 o'clock in the morning, we saw these dholes roaming across a big meadow and chasing deer, but we could not see them whether they made the kill or not. But interestingly, there was a family back at the lodge who did not go out on safari, and you won't believe what they saw. They saw this pack of dhole bring down an adult deer in the water. What a sight it would have been, right? So now we move on to the threats that these animals face. Here in this picture, you can see this is from southern India, and another time where this young pair were trying to hunt spotted deer, but they encountered a big, massive bull elephant, as you can see on the left of your screen, and the tuskers started chasing them. So we'll talk a little more about the threats. Despite their interesting habits and charismatic appeal, dholes in India have suffered a long and terrible reputation. Throughout India's colonial history, British hunters who pursued the sport viewed the dhole as a problem species. For them, the red dog was not a prize trophy, nor was it fit to be a game species valued for meat or fur. These sportsmen often witnessed pack of dholes hunt down and devour deer, wild pigs, and gaur, disemboweling and eating their prey alive. A prevailing belief was that dholes would eat up all the animals in a forest, leaving nothing in store for the leisurely hunts of the Englishmen and other Indian royalty. For a significant part of the last 200 years, dholes were thus vilified, labeled vermin, and bounty hunted indiscriminately. As it is evident from the following quote by G. Fithian Adams, a hunter from a Southern India Game Association. His quote said, "Except for his handsome appearance, the wild dog has not a single redeeming feature, and no effort, fair or foul, should be spared to destroy these pests of the jungle." Just imagine today, the wild dogs continue to face a host of threats and challenges that compromise their future in India. Protected areas like national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, which serve as a safe haven for dhole populations, cover just 5% of the country. And most unprotected forests and sometimes even protected reserves are extremely vulnerable to clearance and diversion for commercial purposes. Large infrastructure projects almost routinely circumvent eco-legal barriers and end up degrading or fragmenting whole habitats. The other big threat that we have in the forests, tigers, as you can see in this picture. This is, however, not a dhole that the tiger has caught. It is another canid species that you find in our forests, which is the jackal, almost similar size than the dhole. But tigers are fiercely territorial and they won't tolerate competition from any other predator. In fact, Big male tigers are known to occasionally kill dholes if they encroach on the tiger's territory. Interestingly, a very new research shows us a direct relationship between the tiger density and the dhole pack inside national parks. Now we can say for sure wherever tiger populations are higher and their density is higher, dhole packs tend to be much smaller. This dynamic reveals the delicate balance of predator interactions within the ecosystem and highlights the challenges dholes face when sharing space with dominant predators like the tiger. Another threat that they face in our forests, leopards. But leopards, unlike tigers, are not known to actively bring down dholes. However, they are notorious for stealing the wild dog kills. Leopards, being opportunistic hunters, as we all know, often take advantage of a dhole's pack's hard-earned prey. This behavior adds another layer of complexity to the competition dholes face in the wild, as they not only have to hunt successfully but also defend their kills from these agile and stealthy predators. Here in this picture, we can see this whole pack defending their prey against wild boars or Indian wild pigs, who are known to be really aggressive scavengers. And we have seen that in many situations, rather than risking injury while trying to fend off these opportunistic feeders, dholes will choose to abandon their hard-earned catch. This strategy helps them conserve energy and avoid dangerous confrontations. What is remarkable is despite this, dholes have an incredibly high hunting success rate, with close to 80 to 90% of their attempts resulting in a successful catch. This impressive efficiency highlights their skills as hunters. Moving on, we will talk about some of the diseases that dholes tend to contract. As more dholes venture outside protected areas, they face increased risks of contracting diseases, particularly through interaction with India's growing feral dog population. Some of the common diseases they pick up include canine distemper, mange, rabies, and parvo. Unfortunately, many of these diseases, like rabies and distemper, are so lethal that they can wipe out an entire pack in a short period of time. We have often seen when local people are entering the forest to collect forest produce, they are mostly accompanied by feral dogs, which increases the interaction with wild dogs and spreads diseases. In this photo, we see a dhole suffering from mange, one of the non-lethal but debilitating conditions that can severely impact their health and survival. This is a growing concern as their exposure to these threats increases. Ah, human wildlife conflict. Have a look at this picture. young dhole pups, maybe around 4 to 5 months old, and no adults with them. And there's a village in the background. So, this is where we talk about human wildlife conflict. In some parts of India, dholes suffer retaliation from villagers because they prey on domestic livestock like goats and sheep. And especially where I am right now in Kanha, around 12 years back, we lost a whole pack. So the story goes as some villagers in retaliation had poisoned one of the carcasses, and within a week, close to 22 to 21 dholes were found dead. Imagine. But things are looking very bright in the future as more studies on dholes is being done via radio telemetry. This tells us as to how in parks like Kanha, dhole populations are now thriving and slowly increasing into the outer forests of the highly protected areas. Radio collaring of dholes has become more common, and we hear about dholes being radio collared in many other protected areas. This gives us amazing insights into the old historic corridors that these animals have been using. Like, just to share some data from Kana National Park, this dhole female who was collared, within 2 days of collaring, these dholes had traveled more than 60 miles away from the national park. And by the time the week ended, they had already come back into the national park. So researchers are using this data, and hopefully in the future, our dhole numbers will increase more. And even this season, after the parks have opened after the monsoons, we have seen a considerable amount of new pairs of dholes getting together. And some of us who've gone to the park recently have also been very lucky to see dholes mating. So for many of you who are visiting India on the Grand India Wildlife Adventure trip, if you are visiting here in January or after January, you might be very lucky to see dholes and their pups. On this note, I would like to say thank you and hope you all enjoyed this presentation. And if you have any questions, please, this is the best time.
Oh, Yaju, that was incredible. I don't think I've ever seen so many stunning photos of dholes, and I am a predator biologist, so thank you for showing us that, especially the pups. Oh my gosh, that was just incredible. The pups are just wow. Right out of the den too. So
Yeah.
everybody, yes, just as Yaju said, let's do Q&A for a little while. So feel free in your control panel to put in whatever questions you have. We will go for the next few minutes, and we'll see how far we can get through. So first, if you could go back to the mange that you said that is going through dole populations, is there a way that it can be treated? Or conservationists doing any mitigation or stepping in any way?
Not that we know of right now, but we have seen, because some of the packs are very local and we've spent some time, we've seen many dholes recovering from mange. by themselves, but no intervention by humans is done till now.
Okay, great. That helps. And on that note, a little further from that, are there any organizations or any conservation efforts that the government is doing to help stop the spread of mange or
Uh,
interactions with domestic dogs and wild dogs?
yes, in close to many protected areas, there is neutering or spaying of feral dogs, which often happens. It's not on a large scale now, but hopefully in the coming years, we can see the numbers increasing. This is something, in India, being a country of 1.4 billion people, spaying of dogs actually has now started more in the cities, less close to the protected areas, because humans are a majority in this country and wildlife is a minority. But we can see that some of the national parks, yes, spaying of these feral dogs is happening, and it will be widespread in the coming few years.
And similarly for canine distemper, is that also
Yeah.
becoming an issue? A bad issue, yeah.
Well, canine distemper, the peaks of canine distemper were the 80s and 90s. And these canine distemper cases are coming down, but not something that the humans or the researchers or biologists have, intervened and done something for it. But naturally, as new corridors for these wild dogs are being created and their dispersal is getting better, so cases are coming down.
That is fantastic news. That is great to hear. We always love a good news, especially when it comes to disease transmission with our domestic wildlife, our domestic animals and wildlife. So
Yes.
we do have a couple more questions about mange itself. Could you describe what the disease is, what causes mange, and how does it spread within a pack or clan? Sorry.
So this is basically, you can say, in simple words, it's a skin infection, which from what I have never seen this happening or the transferring, but when these wild dogs interact with feral dogs which already have mange, and if there's a bite or which comes into place, this disease transfers into the dholes. But we've never seen mange in more the whole pack as such, but one or two individuals in the pack. In
Okay.
simple words, a skin disease.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you for that. So we do have a puppy question about how big are they when they are born?
Few grams,
Oh,
just
tiny.
like yeah, just like our domestic dogs. Even their size, adult holes would actually be much smaller than, if I compare it with the common breed of dog that we know worldwide, German Shepherds or Alsatians. They are smaller. Adult holes are actually smaller. They'll be as big as your coyotes in the United States. So just to
Okay.
give you a comparison, yeah.
Oh, that's a really great example. Thanks for that. The visuals, very helpful. Another really good question. Are there any government or conservation programs that help compensate or mitigate livestock damage caused by doles?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And, our partners, WWF included, and in many parts of central India and some parts of other parts of India as well. So there is continuous compensation for, when predators bring down cattle. So, and the compensation is quite good. So
And
you
what
can
is
say
the
close to,
No, go ahead. You
so,
finish your thought.
no, close to 200 to 300 US dollars, depending on the size of the prey that is brought down, is compensated, and it's quite immediate. So what happens is whenever there's a report of a livestock or a cattle kill, the forest department or the park management is informed. the officers come and immediately do a postmortem. And once it is determined that it was done by a predator, there is some bit of immediate compensation. So you can say that, just to give you an example, these figures will vary. That may be around, out of the, if the cattle is worth $300, maybe 50 to $75 is processed almost immediately. And within the month, the following month, the rest of the compensation follows.
And how was it determined what type of predator took down the livestock?
Oh, well, if it's a tiger or a leopard, the bite marks, tigers kill by, breaking the windpipe, and dholes will kill by ripping open their belly. Dholes will never go for the jugular because they do not have canines so big to bring down the prey by crushing the windpipe.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds like it's pretty pretty easy to determine whether it was a dhole or a cat and then go from there.
Absolutely. But just to your amazement, Brooke, we have seen what some of the villagers have done in the past few years is when a cattle is almost dead or about to die, for some free money, they will often pierce the cattle's neck with a hot iron rod to make it look as if it's been killed by a tiger.
What? That's crazy.
Yes.
Have you seen that a
Yeah.
lot?
Not a lot, but these are instances that are reported once in a few years. Just to, the locals trying to earn a quick buck.
Wow, well, hopefully the authorities can sort through that to keep our
Oh, yes,
conservation
yes, yes. They
programs.
they are, yeah, the medical examiners are very smart, you know,
Good,
and
good. That it's
yeah,
very good to hear. Could you
yeah.
actually talk about genetic diversity? How are packs faring? Are they able to mingle with other packs, or is that a concern for the future of Doles?
Well, in certain pockets of India, there is still a bit of connectivity. There are historical corridors which are being discovered and rediscovered. So I would say in central India and southern India, because of the continuous forest stretches, the genetic diversity is pretty good. But we also have a population in northeast India, and there the population is in like islands, and still not much studies have been done on them. So very difficult to say how genetically diverse they are in northeast India.
Thanks for that. That was very helpful. Just out of curiosity, do the clans in Kana or around where they live in these national parks, are they known? Do they have names similar to like wolf packs in Yellowstone?
Not really, not really. Or when we were working as safari guides and at the lodge, we did name, two of the packs that we would very frequently see. And but it's something that not everyone uses because we do have name for tigers, but dholes have still not reached that level right now, of importance, you can say. But we try our best to, the area like this photo that you see of the pups, this was outside a village called Bumni. So we would often address this pack or clan as the Bumni Dhole pack, but it was just amongst us naturalists or guides, not very commonly used.
Hmm. I have a fun comment here of somebody saying that they would rather see dholes even more than tigers, and it's
Oh,
very,
wow.
very special. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
special, special, special sighting. I did see a pack
yeah.
myself in 2017 when I visited India, and that was a
Wow.
phenomenal, just complete surprise, just total
Yes.
surprise. Um, yeah, so how often do you spot dholes when you're out on safari?
Well, you can say one good sighting a week, depending on the time of the year. As we were talking, that their mating happens, in October, November. That is the peak of their mating season. So once the denning starts, and once the pups are born, their range of movement shrinks a lot, and you will not see these big packs almost till summer. And by the time the pups are around, 3.5 to 4 months old, slowly they will start moving with their parents, and that's when the sightings start increasing. And all the way till, when our last trips in by end of April, even that time the sightings are a lot because that's the time the pups are around 6 months old and they need food.
So then, what month is the best month to do the Grand India Wildlife Tour to have the best chance of seeing dholes?
Well, there are chances all throughout the year, but in our experience, based on the sightings that we've had over the last 12 to 14 years, the most number of big pack sightings happens uh, March onwards, I would say. So it's the summer, and the pups are on a full meat diet by that time. So the dholes need to hunt more. So we see them more.
Well, there you go, anybody. If anybody's interested in seeing some dholes, that's the best chance and time of year. That is
Yeah.
fantastic to know. Would put that in my back pocket there. So this is a really interesting question about behavior. Um, are they able to kill prey while in the water, or is it only on land?
No, we've had sightings of dholes killing prey in the water, and but we also must understand that sometimes the prey might be dying out of shock. So how many times the prey dies out of shock, and how many times it's the dholes that killed the prey completely by disemboweling them? It's very difficult to determine a number, but yes, they do kill the prey in the water. Especially imagine 7 or 8 of them on a say 100-pound deer. It's very easy.
Awesome. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
And next, this is a great question too. Is there a lot of competition between clans in these national parks?
No, no. They are fairly spread out from what we've seen. More than clans, the new pairs that we were talking about, the newly formed pairs, they may have competition, but the packs are fairly spread out. Just to give you an example, a park like Kanha, which is around 1,000 square miles in terms of size, the last estimate, this is not an exact count, last estimate of the whole count was just below 50, while our tiger numbers are more than 115. And
Wow.
only
Okay.
three big packs were recorded, and none of them were more than 15 in number.
Is it common then for individuals to just kind of go in between these packs, or do they stay pretty put once they're established in a pack?
No, no. Research tells us that it's actually more that the females who tend to disperse out as they reach sexual maturity, which starts at around 1.5 years.
Okay. Okay, that's awesome. And then they stay put with their
Uh,
established clan?
yes, those females will stay put with once they become a breeding pair, they are known to stay put. And of course, their pups, when they are born, one of their females may move out. The young
Okay. Yeah,
females, then she'll move out. Yeah.
that makes absolute sense. Yes, thanks for explaining that. Have you by chance been on a collaring expedition of a dog? And if so, could you explain how they're collared for science?
Okay. So, not the actual process of collaring, but I was helping them find the denning site, and we watched the collaring from far away. So, once the scientists got to know that the particular pack of dholes was in the meadow, because they were scientists, Generally, in India, we are not allowed to go off-road the tracks when we are on safaris. But these scientists, because they were on a mission, they were allowed to go off-road, and they used a dart to tranquilize one of the females. And within 15 minutes, they shot the dart. And because of humans, the other dholes ran away for some time. Immediately, the female was measured, their health was checked, a brief estimate of their size and weight was taken, the collar was put, the antidote was shot, and then we just moved out. The scientists just moved out of that area.
Thank you for explaining the whole procedure. That was very interesting. I could visualize it. What is the survival rate of the pups?
Uh, Very, very difficult to say. I will not be able to give you an answer for that because we see them so rarely, once a week, and we also have this gap that after when the pups are around 6 months old, uh, by the time they are 7 months, our parks start shutting for the monsoons, and then when the parks open, they are as big as the adults. So I will not be able to give you an exact answer for that, but I'll still look up and try and share with our guests for the future if I get an answer as to what is the survival rate of the pups.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And just like you said,
Yeah,
since there's a long period where you can't observe the
yeah,
packs or the clans, then that just makes sense. It's like, oh, how many did they keep? How many made it
yeah.
through? Yeah, no, that's great. So, alrighty, everyone, those were some fantastic questions. You all brought up some very wonderful points. And so, Yaju, I would like to turn it to you for any last closing comments.
Hope to see many of you coming to India, and I will be leading some of the groups, so we'll try and track holes and spot them, once we are there in these forests, and hoping to see our guests in India soon.
Absolutely, Yaju. Thank you so much for taking the time to present to us today. And I'd like to thank
My
everyone
pleasure.
who tuned in. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.